So, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We continue in the chapter 37. Guess what? We look forward to finishing it. Interesting, as we noted, this is probably the longest chapter. Certainly the most classes to the chapter. This is actually the 11th class on this Perek. But again, this is the conclusion. As usual, for those of you newcomers which want to generally join in, particularly regarding this understanding of this very chapter, or those of you who missed a bit of this class, you could always go back to the previous classes. You have easy access to the previous classes. In the link box, just put the Tanya, or again on the TanyaOnline.com website, which you have all the classes, all the previous classes from the very beginning of Tanya, easy access to them, and then as well every single class with its corresponding text, and again easy scroll bar to follow, with an easy scroll bar to follow the classes with, again, the exact text of the classes. And we'll just add that this very class, it's usually up on that very website in just a few hours as it comes up on the main Kosher Tube website. Again, yeshikach to them. But again, we just add this, it's the same classes, we just add this just to enable to have this, those who want to join, have better, with greater clarity on the subject and the topics that we're learning, that they're able to follow exactly with the text, which is on the TanyaOnline.com website. So we continue in in page 98 in the original text, and which is the word v'hinei hamshacha v'arazu, and you can find it as well in the corresponding English text. This influence. So v'hinei, with the words begins v'hinei hamshacha, again this influence. So v'hinei hamshacha v'arazu she'adam mamshech u'meir ma'aras yitzov baruch hu al nafshei, that this hamshacha. And now let's just give a bit of a backdrop. And in the previous classes, in reconciliation of the two Memari Razal, the two sayings of our sages of blessed memory, that one place it says how mitzvah tzedakah is greater all the other mitzvahs, and that would include the mitzvah of learning Torah. And then another place it says that Talmud Torah kineged kulam, that Talmud Torah overrides every single mitzvah, including the mitzvah of tzedakah. So after that, Alter Rebbe points out again, and Alter Rebbe really asks this question after he emphasizes the mitzvah of tzedakah and explains of its virtue and of its encapsulating all the other mitzvahs, and more so, it carries the most. It demonstrates, or it signifies the point of the mitzvahs, what mitzvahs are all about, their objectives, their goals, and what they accomplish more than any other mitzvah. And again, you can see in the previous classes, although Rebbe explains so importantly why the mitzvah tzedakah is eilal kulona, is an edge above all the other mitzvahs, based again what the purpose of mitzvahs are. And once one understands what his mandate is, and as such, we're part of our, the very important part of our mandate is to fulfill these mitzvahs, these detailed mitzvahs, or mitzvahs with all its details, tefillin, mezuzahs, and so on. Then he understands why tzedakah is so much more important. And again, instead of running away from tzedakah, not necessarily run away, but sometimes we're laid back when he gifted tzedakah, but we would rush to do this mitzvah even more than the other mitzvah, because again, we just step back and says, why am I here? Why in the world am I here in this world in the first place? I have a particular mandate. So in that, putting things in perspective, then I'd understand that just like any other healthy, any other subject, a healthy person understands that this is what has to be fulfilled. This is why I'm in this position. This is why they put me over here. So despite the particular discomforts, the person would rush to try to do whatever he can to fulfill that mandate to its maximum. And so too, when it comes to mitzvah tzedakah, obviously there's part of us which are laid back in that particular mitzvah. Many of over even other mitzvahs, be that very pious yid, when it comes to tzedakah, I would think twice or 10 times or more till I would actually give money and always maybe calculate again, perhaps give less than I can, and so on. But when we understand what the mitzvah tzedakah is, or rather, we understand what our whole mandate, why we're here in this world in the first place, and how mitzvahs is a very most important part of fulfilling Hashem's master plan, which He entrusted us to implement that master plan. Tzedakah carries all this weight, again, based on this explanation. What the accomplishment of this mitzvah, which is again very much in this chapter, and how mitzvah tzedakah exemplifies this this mitzvah more than any other mitzvah. Naturally, rush and to do more and more of the mitzvah tzedakah more than any other mitzvah, or with the same ambition, with the same excitement and passion that I do any other mitzvah. So after the Alter Rebbe points out what the mitzvah tzedakah, he says, there is how do you reconcile this with, it says Talmud Torah, can you get kulam with all the great advantage and virtue of mitzvah tzedakah? Isn't Talmud Torah, it still says that Talmud Torah is greater, and namely, the Alter Rebbe is asking this question after explaining the mitzvah tzedakah, because Talmud Torah really doesn't have all that which any other mitzvah has, namely the mitzvah tzedakah, again, as you can see in those classes, in this very chapter, the previous classes dealing with this. And yet it does say Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that Talmud Torah is greater than all. So the Alter Rebbe explained, yes, it's not, he reconciles between the two, and he says it's not a contradiction. He says it's not a contradiction between the two. Because from the perspective of fulfilling the master plan, which Hashem created, the Yid, created the entire world, obviously mitzvah tzedakah carries the most weight and brings that realizes and that master plan more than any other mitzvah. It implements and again realizes that master plan over any other mitzvah that we could ever think of. Yet from a certain perspective, another perspective and point of view, Talmud Torah is greater because of its virtues and its advantages. And we explained what is the basis of this reconciliation. We even brought a few examples, the famous Mishnah which says Gan Eden is greater than Yishalachas, one moment Gan Eden, the entire Elam Hazah. The same Mishnah says Chumah Ma'asim Tovim Elam Hazeh is greater than the entire Elam Haba. Again, we pointed out, just as an example, the certain sayings which seem to be contradicting one each other, but yet in no form or fashion are they contradicting one each other. One is speaking about one idea, and the other about the virtues of another idea. In the face of those virtues and those advantages, all the other mitzvahs fall pale to the advantage, again, in this context of learning Torah. As opposed to when you're speaking about the master plan Hashem created us for, and this, what's the whole point of creation? To transform, to make a dira v'tachteinu, a dwelling place for Hashem in this very physical and lowly world. There's no greater mitzvah. We have to invest ourselves, we have to stop learning Torah and invest ourselves in mitzvahs, and namely the mitzvah tzedakah. Again, because as mitzvah tzedakah is a symbol, and exemplifies every single mitzvah, like no other mitzvah. Another example that provides the objective of the mitzvah like no other mitzvah, and therefore halachically we have to stop learning Torah when a mitzvah cannot be performed by any other individual. Which means if it's only I'm the only one who could do the mitzvah, we give a few examples, then I have to stop learning Torah, because again we always have to focus on the reason why we were created and what Hashem had in plan with creation, which the Yids plays an important role, or plays the role in implementing this master plan, and as such we have to stop learning. But yet, the Alter Rebbe in this very chapter points out the advantage, again, where the mitzvahs will be done through others. In other words, we gave a few examples as well. Obviously, I have to continue learning Torah for the milas, for the advantage of learning Torah, that there's no comparison. And the Gemara says, there's no comparison to the great connection that Yid has with the Eivishter by learning Torah. And Alter Rebbe brings, in the last week's class, we had the final of the three. He brings three virtues, important virtues, and advantages over Torah, even over all the mitzvahs, including tzedakah for that matter. And then, last week again, the final advantage of Torah over all mitzvahs, and he says Eilal Kolon, as we spoke about it this last week, and with Alter Rebbe concluded with this famous saying of Sheshes, Chadoi Nafshai, my soul is so excited, And therefore, l'chokra, l'chotana, you Hashem, you Torah, speaking to the Torah, you I will learn. You I will Tanya again, which is Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebalpeh, because I'm so excited with you, I will invest my soul into you. I will learn you, and so on and so forth. And this we concluded the last week. It said, Alter Rebbe begins this Hamshacha, this influence, this shine, which Adam Mamshich Umeir, which the person draws and shines and brings the shine upon himself, which again via his investment in learning Torah, which he connects to and he draws from the Ha'aras Eidin Sof Baruch Hu, the light, of the light of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He, al nafshe, on his soul, al nefashos kol Yisrael, and on the souls of all Yidden, which is the Shechina Knesset Yisrael, Mikir Kol Neshamas Yisrael, to the Shechina, to the divine presence, which is known as to be called as well Knesset Yisrael. The Knesset Yisrael literally means the ingathering of Yidden, of Am Yisrael. So it says in a number of places that this is Mikir Kol Neshamas Yisrael, the source of all the Neshamas Yisrael, like it's explained. And other places that the Shechina is just when we say Mikir Kol Neshamas Yisrael, what is that? How is that connected? How does it align itself with Knesset Yisrael? Because Knesset is something which you gather a few components together. You call it Knesset. Maybe people, like in this case, would be Knesset Yisrael, the ingathering, the coming together of Yidden. So when you deal with a shadish, a source of something, that is the best way, or in the most the true knisa, the true ingathering of different elements together, is when they stand in the shorosh or makar, and they stand in the very source. Something would ultimately develop, for example, a seed, which will ultimately produce an apple tree, a full apple tree. So all the energy of this apple tree, the leaves, the branches, naturally the fruits, are all condensed in this very seed. So that's kones, even more than when they develop and you bring them together, yet each one stands as a separate entity, and you see their separateness, you see how they're separate, even when you bring them together, as opposed to when they stand in their makor, in their source, then they're truly together. So therefore Knesset Yisrael is the place which is the source of all the neshamas. That's why it's called Knesset Yisrael, which means when they're truly connected, when they're truly assembled, in a way like everything else, when it stands in its root, on a root level and its source level, they're truly one. So this is, in other places it says this is the Shechina, the level of Shechina. Now we know that there's different levels within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like Lahavda, what are different levels within the human being. There's the way I form myself by myself. I intellectualize, and there's expressions that I feel. I have expressed my feeling. There's times when I think, and there's times when I speak, and there's times when I do. And it's all the same person, but there are more deeper, profound parts of the person's expression, or expressions coming from more profound parts of the person, as opposed to different expressions, rather, what comes from the inferior parts of the person, like action or even speech in comparison to thought, etc. So too, in a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's the deeper dimensions within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more external dimensions within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For example, say, L'shem yichud kutshu brichu u'shchinte. Before we do a mitzvah, or before we start davening, before Baruch Sha'amar, or before we start davening, we say L'shem yichud kutshu brichu u'shchinte. What is that supposed to mean? I've spoken about this in the past as well, that there is a yichud, a oneness. This is all in order to unite, the Shem Yichud, to unite, to bring out one, to bring oneness, or to unite the Kuchabrichu Ushchinte. Now you ask any little child, who's Kuchabrichu? Is Hashem. Who's Shchinte? Who's the Shechina? Is also the Hashem. It's the divine the divine presence is Hashem. So it seems to connote that perhaps there is a God called Kuchabrichu. Chas v'shalom, it shouldn't really come up on the lips, but just for the sake of explanation over here, there's one God called Kuchabrichu and the other one called Shchinte, and they're kind of have a quarrel between each other. And my davening is L'Shem Yichud. We're going to unite the two. We're going to unite the Kuchabrichu and the Shchinte. They should stop fighting. Let's say Chas v'Chalila. Again, it shouldn't even be said. It shouldn't even be said rhetorically, but let's try to really understand what does it mean. I'm davening for the sake of the unity of Kuchabrichu Shchinte. It's interesting, I asked around a few people in the different classes. It remained a riddle. It remained something that people which say it hundreds and thousands of times over the years. They didn't understand what really means. Despite saying this so many times, day in, day out, on a daily basis, there's certain people that say before every mitzvah they do. But what does it really mean? And the answer is that there is the deeper dimension within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's the external, or the inferior dimension within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For example, classically, the Asar Mamaris and Asar Adibris. Asar Mamaris is with the 10 sayings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, which again, naturally, the world as a creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then you have the Aseret HaDibros, which is also in the number of 10, but the 10 sayings, the 10 commandments, which are the basis for the entire Torah, which we know Torah is part and parcel of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anochi is a non-nafshi ksavis Yehavis. We brought this Gemara a number of times, that Hashem put His whole essence into Torah. The Torah is the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, it has even a very acronym of the word Anochi, so this is the God Himself. The Aseret HaDibros is part of the Creator, while the Asar Mamaris, which ultimately is sayings which create a world which is on its own. Again, the way it expresses itself is distant. It's an olam from the expression of hell and Esther, concealment over the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, it's not what the truth is. The truth is Einei Mavade, but the way the world presents itself, that itself shows that the Asar Mamaris come in a very condensed and conceals the reality of Creator within creation, and therefore creation could demonstrate itself in a way that it's separate, kaviyachu, so to say, from its creator. While the Aseret HaDibros is the creator to the energy of the creator itself. It's the part of the BAYT, because it's Torah, and Torah is the Anochi Hashem Lekecha. Torah is the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Asar Mamaris also comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it deals with the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to create something which is kaviyachu. I say kaviyachu means, so to speak, outside of the domain, so to say, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to say, because in the end of the day, it's not so. But on the surface, what the world is created from Asar Amar is that itself, a world which again obscures the Creator from creation, that it also shows that Mamaris itself is already an inferior dimension within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which ultimately creates this Olam, which demonstrates it being separate, Kaviyachal, from its Creator. But what is the point of those two? So you have again two dimensions within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One an inner dimension, and one an outer dimension, one an exterior, inferior dimension. But yet, what is the objective? As we learn again in these very chapters, and more so in this very chapter, the point, Lamidvav, is previous in this very chapter, the point is combined the two, that it should be felt in the Olam, and the world should be felt that it is that its own truth, that ultimately it is just a manifestation of the same Creator. Then how do we do that? The point is, like it's a asara kaf shekal hakodesh, to combine, to infuse, to fuse, rather, to merge the two of the Aseret HaDibros with the Asar Mamaris, which ultimately creates an Olam. The Aseret HaDibros, which carries the energy of the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, should inculcate, it should be influenced, more so should perfectly synthesize with Olam, with Asar Mamaris, which ultimately creates an Olam. And in the world itself, you should feel the reality, its true reality, which is Einei Mavade, the Emes Hashem La'olam, the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is again the true Emes of Olam, which is Emes Hashem La'olam. And how do we do that? We do that when we implement the Aseret HaDibros. So we do the Torah, when we learn Torah, we do mitzvahs, and that's the way we bring the Emes Hashem Le'olam. We fuse the two, the Aseret HaDibros with the Asar Mamaris. And again, it should be felt ultimately in the production of Asar Mamaris, the Einei Mavadi, the reality, the true reality of Olam itself, which is the Emes Hashem. And that is the reason why we say every single day in davening, as we begin our day, and again, for that matter, the reason why there's the customs of those who don't say before every mitzvah, because the L'Shem Yichud, which we said in the morning, is supposed to include all the mitzvahs we do subsequently throughout the entire day. But this is what we really say. It's meaning before this mitzvah, the point is we say or we demonstrate one way or another. It's the beginning of the day or prior to that mitzvah, l'shem yichud. That there's the kuchabrichu, which is the ways kodesh, which is he's whole, sanctified and holy and separated, which means David just for himself by himself. And then there's the Shechina. The Shechina already deals with the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which ultimately becomes a creator, which is the more inferior part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shochenu Shechina means shochenu mitlabesh. He gets involved and he invests in tachtenim, in this ultimately in every world, and in Machus Chomalchus Kol Elam, in all worlds, and ultimately till this very world, which is Elam Hazar Tachten Shein Tachten Matamenu, which is the lowest. And then the entire chain of Seder Ishtalshlus, we spoke about this many times, and this is what is the energy, which again Shechina is very much aligned and synonymous with Asar Mamoris, which ultimately create. There's a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu which becomes a creator. To Eilam is the world, which again is the most inferior part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when I do this mitzvah, l'shem yichud, there should be unity between the two, that the kuchabricha should fuse with the Shechintah. And hence it should again be more and more felt the emes Hashem la'elam, the true reality of Eilam itself, which is Ein Mabad. And that's the point that we do the mitzvahs. Again, that's the point of the l'shem yichud before the mitzvah. Yet, together with that the Shechina, as much as it's the source, which becomes a source of Eilamis, Malchus, which is also Shechina, and Malchus Kol Elamim becomes the Malchus of all Eilamis, yet there's the inner dimension of Malchus as well. Like even in speech itself, that sometimes people speak, yet there is, within their speech, there is, you see it's just an external expression, which means even with the expression of speech, there are different ways a person would speak. Sometimes there's less soul in his speech. It thinks that he just says something in a very simple manner, pass me this, or this, or please do that for me, or move this over for me, for example, bring me that chair. And then there's sometimes you put more of your soul within your speech. And in the speech itself, it's felt it's not just words over here, but there's a lot of soul energy. And again, within that itself is deeper and deeper and deeper levels, which, if you think about it, this is also the point of Hashem Yichud Kuchabrichu, to bring out, to connect the Aseres HaDibres, which is soul speech, together with the Aser Mamaris, which ultimately is the energy which creates Eilamis. But yet within speech itself, again with even multiple layers, there is the energy which ultimately creates Eilam, and then there is the part of the Shechina which becomes the Mekir in Neshamas Yisrael, the source of the Neshamas Yisrael, which will ultimately descend into the Guf and the Shemahamis in Eilam and in their body, and again in Eilam Hazar, to do this mission, to implement this master plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, another again the fusion of the two. So the Shechina, as much as it's as well the energy which creates Eilamis, it's also the Mekir, Neshamas Yisrael. Naturally, this is a deeper dimension within the Dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Neshamas Yisrael are the very profound part of creation. They are ultimately a Chelek Kamimal, a part of God. So naturally, when we speak about Dibur, in the context of Asar Mamaris, which creates Eilam, as opposed to the Shechina, which is the same Dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which becomes this Shadish. It's called Knesset Yisrael, as we just explained. As you can't, the archetype of Knisa, the paradigm of Knisa is when everything stands in its Shadish and Mokir in its source. Again, as we explained before, so the Shadish and Mokir of Neshamas Yisrael is also called Shechina, because this eventually will manifest in all these neshamas which will come down into this world and to implement this objective of making a Hashem Adir V'Tachtenim again in this very physical world. So it's obviously a deeper level of Dibur of the Shechina, because the Shechina which becomes the source of Eilamis, of worlds which are again Ma'ila Mamasti, which conceal and obscure the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we all know it, for example, in this very physical world. Again, as we come closer to the Yemei Mashiach, it becomes more evident. The Elokus, the godliness which exists, as we see more and more Ashkacha Pratis and on all these miracles which are unfolding in front of our eyes, because again, everything is ultimately coming to fruition, all this investment over the last 3,300 years. But talk about it from the perspective of the objective of the Yid, and HaKadosh Baruch is giving the Torah. He's giving the Torah to a Yid in order to bring out, to demonstrate it in a world which obscures the Emes Hashem. And that's an Eilam, again, from the expression of Helen Hester. And so the Asarim Amoris, which create that, obviously is a more exterior dimension within the Shechina. Then the Shechina, the way it becomes a Mekayel of Neshamas Yisrael. So these are Neshamas ultimately can come down into a goof and a body and kind of become also, to some degree, kind of a separate entity which is working with this brand separate entity, which is Eilam, in order to transform the world to making it a home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But yet, you're dealing with the Neshamas, so the Shechina, the way it's a Mekir of Neshamas Yisrael, is actually a deeper level within the Shechina. But again, that separately, that's understood as we try to reconcile. Sometimes Shechina becomes is known to be the Malchus Kol Elamim, and then the Shechina becomes Neshamas Yisrael. But again, these are two levels of the Shechina. So, the way the Alter Rebbe is saying that what happens when we learn Torah, just like when the person does the mitzvah, or for that matter, when he learns Torah, he fuses the two. The Aseres HaDibris, the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, with the Shechina, and it ultimately manifests. Again, the world becomes a more refined world, and becomes a world which demonstrates its own essential truth, which is the Ein Mavadei. And so too, it happens again of the connection on the very source of where the Asarim Amoris are, which is the Shechina. But more than that, again, it reflects on the Mekir Neshamas Yisrael dimension of the Shechina. And that's what he says over here, that the Torah connects with the particular Yid which is learning Torah, and as well, when he learns Torah, he's not only connecting it to his Neshama, but more so that connection happens to the source of all Neshama. So when I learn Torah, I'm bringing down the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, again, that Aseres HaDibris, the Eibishter, the way it's formed, so by himself, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on my own soul, I'm connecting on my Nefesh, which is again the kind of microcosm of the Shem Yichud Kuchubrichu Ushchinte, the Kuchubrichu within the particular Shechina, or my Nefesh, which is part of that Shechina. And I'm connecting the two, bringing the Ein Sof upon my Nefesh, and as well, simultaneously, I'm bringing it again, the Yichud Kuchubrichu Ushchinte, on the Mekayr of Kol Neshamas Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe continues, Alidei Sekat Torah, through learning Torah. And again, I just took a few moments to elaborate, even though this is, the messages, as we're going to see further, the flow, the message, the way it flows over here in these subsequent lines, is as we're going to learn. The Alter Rebbe points out the point of Korei Batorah, why Torah is called Korei, in the expressions of the Mishnah, Kol HaKorei Batorah. Why is it Kairei? The Alter Rebbe is going to explain, but I just took a few moments to just explain these words over here. What does it mean? He draws it on his own Nefesh, which is understandable. And again, based on everything we learned, he draws the Ein Sof on his own Nefesh. But what is the meaning of Nefesh Kol Yisrael, Yashchina Knesset Yisrael, Mekir Neshama Kol Neshamas Yisrael? Just to understand what the Alter Rebbe meant in that line. But we go on, and we say that this again, through learning Torah, Nikras V'Lashon Kriya, is called. It has the expression of Kairei. He calls Kairei Batayra. Again, Alter Rebbe is quoting the multiple times in Talmud, when the Talmud deals with learning Torah. For that matter, something that says Osek Batorah, which is again has a separate lesson. Torah has to be learned like an Asek, like when someone's a business, he just doesn't sit around and wait for someone to come to buy his products. He is heavily involved with passion and ambition. So too, Torah has to be learned the same way, which again, that's the diuk of Kolaisik Torah, which is not right now dealing with it, but we have other places dealing with that expression in the Talmud. Many times when it comes to learning Torah, it says Kairei Batayra. And Alter Rebbe points out, why is it called Kairei Batayra? Lomei Torah. You're learning Torah. What does it mean, Kairei? You're calling? But now we can understand, because when you learn Torah, you're connecting with the deepest parts of within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Torah itself is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, based on the three advantages and virtues the Alter Rebbe pointed out previously, again, in the last two classes, why Talmud Torah is greater than every other mitzvah, by definition of Talmud Torah. And again, namely, the last part, the Alter Rebbe says, Elam Kolana, this not isn't only a limb, an aver, similar to the mitzvahs, which is called a Varim, the Malko, a limb of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Again, you could see in the previous class what is the difference of these two, the difference between the two. And even though the difference would be obvious, a limb to the nefesh as opposed to the nefesh itself. Torah is a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Torah is the Ne'ev Hashem's nefesh. Now we can understand why it says Torah b'Torah, because when you learn Torah, you're calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Open up a Gemara and sit and learn. The way a Yid is supposed to learn Torah, if it's a Mishnah, a Gemara, or a Tanya, or Halach, or any part of Torah, Akdesha, or Holy Torah, because right now at that moment, on the most profound levels, again, in which precisely, again, it exists within every mitzvah you connect to the Kodesh Baruch Hu, precisely with the advantages of learning Torah over all the mitzvahs, you're calling the Kodesh Baruch Hu, be next to me. Don't go away from me. Like a child calls his father, please don't part from me. I gotta be with you and I gotta see you all the time. Now we understand, based on those old explanations, we understand why it's called Bikush and Kriya, in a way of calling Kairi Batera, Pirush, Shaidei Sekatera, Kairi Lakadosh Baruch Hu, because when you occupy yourself in Torah, you call Lakadosh Baruch Hu, love, to come to you, to come to him, and you're calling Lakadosh Baruch Hu to come to you. So to say, like someone calls his friend to come to him, like a child which calls his father to come to him, to be constantly connected to him. You should not part from him, and you should remain alone, which is the greatest devastation in a child when he turns around and he doesn't recognize anybody. For that matter, we spoke about the number of times in the context of Chas v'Shalom you're doing a sin, which is similar. But again, we pointed this out many times that you really think about a child, and some of you use the example. He's in an amusement park and he's just eyeing all these rides, and he's so excited to go this one he can't even catch his breath on which ride he's going to go and not go. And he's so excited, but the moment he turns around and he doesn't see anybody he recognizes, he or she turns around, doesn't see, does not notice any, in other words, doesn't recognize those who brought him there. Again, if it's his family member, or namely a parent, and they don't see their parents, these children don't see their parents, they're not interested in anything. And tell them about the free pass for the day, they're not interested in anything, because they don't see. They lost eye contact with their mother or father. And the greatest joy is when their mother and father again shows up on the scene, and they just want to be close to them. And sometimes they don't even want to go anymore in their rides, because they're so devastated with this disconnection, which is, again, naturally, this is an example, Chas v'Shalom, the notion of sin, that we have all these temptations and delicacies and delights in front of our eyes, and somewhat we could, Chas v'Shalom, take things out of perspective, but a healthy Yid knows it's about being always close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and everything else falls pale and becomes insignificant in comparison to that comfort, or that the significance of being always close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, never to be separate, never to be separate and from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from Hashem, which is again the notion of staying away from every Aveira. But again, that we just gave that example a few times. But in this context, I'm not dealing with the Aveira, the idea of the Yid having the opportunity of constantly learning Torah, because when he learns Torah, he's calling Hashem, be with me together. I want to be always together with you, and please don't part from me. Again, as the expression, the Alter Rebbe illustrates the notion or the expression of a child which always wants to be together with a parent. And he calls his father, please be next to me, and I want you to be connected and close to me. Don't separate from me, and I will Chas v'Shalom, or I will be separated. I'll be yechidi, I'll be alone, I'll be separated from you, God forbid. And again, Alter Rebbe is using the term Chas v'Shalom when we take lightly the mitzvah of Limud Torah in a time when we could be kated, we could always have a Kodesh Baruch Hu, not only in close proximity, but literally part and parcel of ourselves. For in Torah you have the nefesh of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, it's important to try to review those three reasons of the advantage and the virtue of learning Torah, even over all the other mitzvahs. Again, when the mitzvah cannot be done through anybody else, you obviously have to stop learning Torah for the reasons we mentioned. But when we are learning Torah, we have the opportunity to learn Torah. There's no particular mitzvah is calling us at the time. We should invest our every string of our soul, every quarter of our soul in learning Torah, because with this we stay close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the nefesh of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the connection is even deeper than even by doing a mitzvah. And that's why it's called kaire, like a son, a child who says, calls his father and mother, please be close to me, I never want to part from you, I never want to feel and be alone. And that is the situation, the state of a yid devoid of learning, of Torah learning. As opposed to when he learns Torah, he right away connects, and Hashem is not only he's part of Hashem, he's close to him, connected, constantly connected to him. And this is what it says in the pasuk in Tehillim, which we say a few times a day, that Hashem is close to whoever calls upon him. And then the pasuk goes on, the ones who call him the emes with truth. What's that supposed to mean? You're calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you say Hashem is going to be close, he's going to be close. But the pasuk says no. Then you got to call him with truth. What does he mean call him with truth? So there's obviously the point of davening, which is again, it's not something, it's not man-made that we're going to daven and Hashem is going to answer. Yes, we'll call Hashem and Hashem will answer us. But you want to know where the true calling upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. The emes, says David HaMelech, the ein emes ala Torah. Truth is Torah, like it says in a number of places, that ein emes ala Torah. Torah is another name, a description for Torah is emes, and David HaMelech says that you want to truly call upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu is b'chol shikru be'emes. If you'll sit and learn Torah, you'll establish a kviyas itim, an important time on a daily basis to learn Torah. That's the way you're calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as Alter Rebbe is going to say, that let's not try to establish our own relationship or our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu based on our terms. We ought to establish in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's terms. And for example, I want this person which is distributing, for example, money, as an example, or other goodies, and he's in another room. He doesn't hear me and I don't hear him. He doesn't hear me, he doesn't see me, and so on. And I'm starting to talk to him in an adjacent room with a thick wall, and I'm talking and say, could you please give me, you're distributing money, and I happen to need money, for example, could you give me some money? Or could you give me this and part of these gifts, which would make me excited as well, rather. But he doesn't hear you. Why doesn't he hear you? Because in another room. Does he have a problem extending himself to you? Not at all. Does he want to extend himself to you? Very much so. But he doesn't see you, he doesn't hear you, because you're in a different domain. And the same thing, and again, just to see the example, because obviously all the detail of the example is not the way it is in the nimshal, this which we're trying to relate. For Hashem is everywhere, Hashem hears us all the time, and Hashem knows exactly everything about us. There's no such a thing that there is a wall which divides, even though it says the only thing which really divides the Yidden HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a sin of any seichem abdil. But at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a return and wants us to come back to Him, and He wants us to break apart the wall which Kaviyachol divides us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says, "Afil mechitza shel barzel," does not divide even a partition of metal. Ultimately doesn't divide the Yidden HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu always wants the connection and always is interested in any circumstance. He wants us to connect to Him. Even if we went wrong, He wants us immediately to do tshuva, and He's always there to accept us. Hence, there's no such a thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on the other side of the wall. He doesn't hear us. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu yet established within His own Torah that there are going to be ways that you will connect to me. It's not running over a mountaintop and just deciding that this is the way that you're going to connect to me, and then sit there for hours and then say, God, I love you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you exactly where He is. You want to find Him, come to Him where He is. Where is He? In Torah. And from a certain perspective, there's something within Torah even over the stop calling of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is, or the way it is in the constitution of prayer. Now let me make it clear. Now Alter Rebbe is going to say over here, to the exclusion of some of calling God. So as many ask, and again we're going to see it inside in a moment, but we're already, we just went into this topic already. Let's try to reconcile it. It doesn't mean that Alter Rebbe is not negating the whole notion of prayer, which is all about calling God. Baruch atah Hashem, heal me, cure me, and cure us and bless us, and so on. All these the brachas which we daven on a daily basis, asking for Hashem's assistance. Isn't that part of the kaira we shikru even be'emes, that we're calling a HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'emes? So the Alter Rebbe is really saying over here that from a certain perspective and point of view, there is something very special in learning Torah, even over any other mitzvah, including davening. So, but namely, it goes like this: davening itself is part of the constitution of Torah, that we should daven. So Torah itself is dictating and telling us that Hashem relates to the Yid, passes this message to the Yid through this mitzvah of and it says the Torah itself has a mitzvah and says that through via davening, again, namely the way it was constituted and brought into our Sidurim through the Anshe Knesset Agdela, which had the mandate of Torah to form davening the way it is, but it's ultimately anchored in Torah itself. The Torah itself tells you that in the context of davening, this is the time to say Baruch Atah Hashem and try to elicit the source and the Ato and the Hashem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it should come down into a way and be manifest into Yisrael, into Baruch Aleinu, and the curing and again and the blessing and so on and so forth, which is the constitution of the Shemoneh Esrei, and for that matter all the brachas, starting from Brachas HaShachar. But yet when a person finishes davening and he still feels that he needs HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he wants HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be close to him, and namely as well that would manifest in all the good stuff HaKadosh Baruch Hu has it for us, because Hashem is the Mekeir Kol HaBrachas, the source of all the brachas. If you're close to God, you're close to His blessings. You're close to God, you're close to His blessings. You can't separate the two. There's no other source of any other blessing other than God. Period. And we do not need not to look for anything, because it's all, in the end of the day, how our portfolio is with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Close to God, close to blessings. It might look like something on the surface that I did that, and that something's contrary to God's desire, or that it's not perfectly aligned with God's desire, or I relegate this which is important for God. It might look like I'm finding blessings anywhere, but in the end of the day, it'll inevitably fall apart, because where the Mekeir Kol HaBrachas is God. God is the source of all blessings. And therefore a person always wants to be close to God, but not only because God is going to bless him and give him the stuff what he needs, which is also important for the average healthy individual living in Elam Hazeh with our needs and things which allow us to comfortably serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But even on a more deeper level is the point that he never wants to be himself, just like a child doesn't. When he wants to be close to a father, it's not because later the father is going to give me another ride or something, or he's going to give me another few pennies, or my mother's going to serve me breakfast. A child wants to just cuddle with his or her mother, or be in the presence of the father on a constant basis without any cheshbonah, without any calculations. Together with that, the child knows. Together with that, the child knows that this is where I'm going to receive everything. If it's a small child which is nursing, or a child which is going to be served breakfast the following morning, and so on and so forth. But namely, from the child perspective, it's just I want to be close to my parents. And the same thing with our relation with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, we don't have to always look for the Mekeir Kol HaBrachas, Hashem being the source of all blessings, which ultimately there is a dimension which is important for us, because this is the point of davening. We ask Hashem that to make us our life comfortable, in order to actually, for that matter, in the end of the day, to serve Hashem, for sure. But we ask Him again to bring us these comforts in order that we should be able to serve Hashem with joy and gladness of the heart, without any hardship. Shall Hashem bless every individual as an individual member of Am Yisrael and all the good people in the world. Among all collectively all of Am Yisrael and the entire world. Yet there is something even deeper than that I want a Yid who wants to only and always be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like a child which always wants to be close to his parents. So the Alter Rebbe is not negating over the notion of prayer. First of all, again, prayer itself is established, based, again, predicated on Teiras Emes. But what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that not to make a mistake, that sometimes people, after prayer, and they just said, I don't want to leave you, God. So after prayer, instead of going to a Gemara or to any part of Torah and investing the time, like it says in the Gemara, it says, to establish a shir kavua right after davening, or before davening, or right after davening, or during the evening, again, each one based on their how they have to implement this halacha of Talmud Torah, which, for that matter, it's incumbent upon every single Yid on a daily basis to learn Torah. You have to do like anything else. If you want to know if your esrog is kosher, you consult with a rabbi. You want to know if tefillin is kosher, you consult with a sefer or a rabbi. So too, each one, it's incumbent upon every single Yid to consult with his own rabbi, show him his schedule, and ask him, what is my obligation in the context of learning Torah? Because every Yid has to learn Torah. And again, part of additional to the mitzvah of learning Torah, that's the way you're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to respond to you. And not to think for a moment, okay, that now I have some time, I'm going to just run out there and say, God, God, I love you, God, God, I love you. That's what the David HaMelech says. Kodev Hashem, you know where Hashem is close, to all the people who call and those who call him with truth. You want God and you finish davening, or you have time in the evening, don't just run out there and just sit on the mountaintop and say, God, God, I love you and you love me, and so on and so forth. Hashem says that's not where I am. So it doesn't mean it's not, Hashem is not everywhere. Hashem is everywhere, but he established, and within his own, Hashem himself established and says, I am in the Mishnah. I am in the Sefer Halachos. I am in this any other Sefer which is aligned with Teira Seinu Akdesha. That's what I am. Can't help it. You want me? Open up a Sefer of Teira and learn Teira. That's the way you're created. And again, this is a tantamount. This is the point why the Mishnah and the Talmud uses the term when associated with the Yid learning Teira. He says Koire B'Teira, because when you're learning Teira, you're calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be one with you. Again, based on whatever we explained in last week's class, and generally the connection, again, additional to every mitzvah, namely in the Limud HaTeira, for all the virtues, again, explained in the last two classes for that matter, of learning Teira, which is the advantage of learning Teira, that when the Yid sits down and learns Teira, he's Keir LaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be one with him. And let's see it inside the text. Then Shekeir LaKadosh Baruch Hu, he calls HaKadosh Baruch Hu Teira Dafka, precisely through Teira. And that's what David HaMelech says, L'chol Shekru Be'emes. Hashem says, this is where I am. La'fuki, to the exclusion, me Shekeir Eisa Shalea Deisa Teira. He wants to call HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not through the occupation of Teira. Let's say, Kach, Abba, Abba. He's calling Father and Father. Father, Father. And Alter Rebbe says Lafuke. Lafuke means to the exclusion. So we shouldn't think for 1 second that after that, the way, if I have time and I want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, namely sometimes when a person has a problem. So obviously when he's dealing with a problem, there is important, and it's the natural, for that matter, natural expression of every single day, Oy Tata, Oy Hashem, help me. Obviously there is that in a very dear on high, and Hashem does turn to the person. He sees that that brokenness in the person's heart, and is calling upon Hashem, simply focusing, remaining with that healthy focus, that in the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only an overall leader and dominator or ruler over this world, but the hashgacha is pratis. Hashem is the providence, divine providence is in a prati, in a specific, detailed manner. And Hashem is right over here dealing with my problem. And Hashem does appreciate when a person calls upon him, especially it's an inner spontaneous call. Oy Bashefer, Oy Hashem. And Hashem, as will, does respond when a Yid turns to him. But yet, and again, it's explained in a number of places when a Yid says, calls, and again, spontaneously and naturally, the Abba, it is something very dear on high, and it's also within the service of the Yid to his Creator. It's kind of, it's a supreme type of relationship. In those moments, there's like nothing other than him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What Alter Rebbe is saying is not excluding the natural call within the Yid, and especially when the Yid is in trouble, he says, Oy Hashem, please Hashem help me. That's healthy, that's normal, and that's important to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because that relationship and that moment is so genuine and pure and authentic. But we're dealing with a service that a person believes that I have time, I have an hour, let me just sit and run out in my backyard and just say, Father, Father, and so on, and relegate the notion of learning Torah. In that hour that I could have learned a full siman in halacha, that is what Alter Rebbe is negating. And this is what David HaMelech is negating. Alter Rebbe explained this is what David HaMelech says. He started with the pasuk Kodev Hashem l'chol kedav. Hashem is close to everyone who calls him. But l'chol shikru v'emes, David HaMelech continues. And you want to call me, you know where I am? I'm not here. I'm in Torah. I'm in that halacha. What you're understanding in the halacha, you're speaking about halacha of dealing with, for example, the ribis, which is interest as an example. There's so many halachas, just choose one, or tefillin, or tzitzis, and what is the connection to God? I'm not talking to God, I'm dealing with this tefillin's like this, it's kosher. If the tzua is black, it's kosher. If it's not black, it's not kosher. I don't see the actual connection to my to is certainly not an intimate connection with my Creator. I'm dealing with the tzur should be black or it's not black. That's what you see, or that's what appears on the surface. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself is telling us, and this is the message of David HaMelech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself is telling us, I am in that halacha. And what part of me? The core essence. Even over other mitzvahs, for that matter, it's interesting, it's important probably to bring this Gemara. The Gemara says, what if someone has problems and he looks over all his deeds and he sees his pretty much good boy doing all the stuff what he has to do, a nice spirit filling, and he's medayik and minyan, and his filling is in the right place, and the mezuzahs are kosher, and so on. He goes through like a healthy yid. When things are not good, he always tries to reflect on his relationship with his Creator, which is the source of all blessings. And when he finds everything is good, the Gemara says, you know what? Take into account, or start looking at if you're okay in that mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which sometimes we relegate because we don't see that, we don't give it the adequate importance. The Gemara says, Yitle bebitul Torah. See how many hours of the week goes away that you could have learned Torah and you did not learn Torah. And the Gemara is saying, pay adequately in similar attention, or it says even you made all the cheshbon. In other words, the Gemara is acknowledging you're dealing with a yid which is doing everything right. That is a healthy, honest yid, which has a true, healthy, honest reflection and retrospection. In other words, he retrospects in a very true and honest way, with honesty and integrity and so forth and so on. So the Gemara itself deals with such a yid, yet the Gemara says if you still have these problems, try to identify with the bittul Torah for me, for the time of the Torah which is gone to waste, and try to bring more structure in your limud Torah, in shiurim. Again, the importance always in shiurim. It's not only just grab a sefer here and there, it's important, and many times it's important to go to a Mekayim Torah, to leave your home and to sit for an hour, 45 minutes or an hour and a half. And it's in learn Torah. It's very important to bring structure, again, structure in time, structure in place, and so on and so forth. But the Gemara says deal with that, and your problems will dissolve. Which again, the Gemara is very similar. It's in conjunction with this message over here, and this is what David HaMelech is negating. That I have time and I'm going to invest it. Again, it's not in the context of prayer, which obviously the Alter Rebbe is not chas v'shalom negating a mitzvah. Tefillah is mitzvah say deraisa. It's a Torah commandment. The times of prayers of the Rabbanim command Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv. We have to be very careful at it. But after we finish the formal davening and we have an hour in our hands, and just to run out and say Abba, Abba, Hashem says, I'm not there. I'm in the halacha. Yes, you know the halacha of the ritzuas are black and white. That is my core essence. And the more you bring your seichel to connect to Torah, and it's a Rashi, and it's a Tesis, and it's a Kasha, and the details, the very nuances and details of Torah, the more you're connecting in a more profound and a deeper and intimate level with myself. And being intimate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're just there together. You become part and parcel with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And obviously this is the greatest connection, or the greatest achievement, aspiration a person would want, additional to the fact that because the Eibush is a source of all blessings, and obviously the blessings will ultimately manifest as well. But it's the point of connecting like a child in the youngest of age, from even the youngest of age, only wants to be connected to their parents. Like it says, I'll read that the Navi laments and says, there's no one calling your name. What does it mean, there's no one calling your name? What is the Navi saying? Jews always call upon Hashem's name. The Alter Rebbe is speaking again about this kind of, so to say, problem, that sometimes we just decide that we're going to connect to God in our terms, and we're going to say God, God, and spend so much time in just saying God and here and God there. But instead of going to where God is, which is in Torah, and therefore the person healthily is Kedah B'Torah. Is a Kedah B'Torah in a healthy manner, or rather he's Kedah Kodesh Baruch Hu via Torah, he's Kedah B'Emes l'chol ha'shekru'u B'Emes. Mizeh, the Alter Rebbe concludes this chapter, Mizeh is bein ha'maskal ha'amshachal v'yirik dela. With this, they understand it. Once we understand what Torah is, based on all this previous explanation, to be mamshich al yirik dela, to draw upon ourselves a great fear, and the time of the occupation in Torah, like we said before, and Perek Chav Gimel in the chapter Chav Gimel. Before I just conclude what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, interesting, within the Kedah Torah, the Alter Rebbe says twice over here, Lashon Asik. He still doesn't go up because he alludes to the other description of Torah, learning Torah in the Talmud, which is Asik Torah, because again, Torah has to be learned as a Bal Asik, someone as a businessman, which again with aggressiveness and passion and so on. And here the Alter Rebbe says this again. But getting back to, again, just tangentially said, getting back to the Alter Rebbe saying, now that we understand what Torah is, that it's ultimately connected to the core, connecting to the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we learn Torah, we realize we're not just learning a book, reading any other book. This is God Himself. When you're having this face-to-face or even intimate connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you understand that you learn Torah with great awe and reverence. And similarly, like the Gemara says, that a person has to learn Torah, he has to re-experience the Matan Torah. Just like with Matan Torah, when Hashem says, Anei Hashem Lekecha, the world was shaking, and the Yid stood with complete yira. Because of their great fear and reverence, awe and reverence, they stood in a way that even Parchon Hishmasan, even their soul has left them. They expired till HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them that back, their soul, for the next one of the desires of division. In other words, it was a symbol of the Yid standing with a complete aim of the Yid of the rest of Israel, like it says in the Lashon in Talmud, with fear and awe, and reverence and sweat and so on. It says kach in the same way. When you learn Torah, it has to be in the same manner, which means learning Torah to a Yid has to be a re-experience of Matan Torah. And Alter Rebbe says, and again, in conjunction with that, the Rebbe doesn't bring this Talmud over here, but the Alter Rebbe is saying over here that based on everything we told you what Limud Torah is, understandably, the way we learn Torah is not like the way we read any book. It's Torah is Hashem Himself. Therefore, we have to draw upon ourselves this great yira in the time of our occupation in Torah, like we said in the previous chapter, 23. Have a wonderful evening.